everyone has little breakdowns that happen in their career or even day-to-day functions. And that self-reflection helps you go, okay, how quickly can I turn this into a breakthrough? Like, what am I learning from this? Where am I going from this? It's all about switching those breakdowns into breakthroughs and just pushing forward.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Career Path. I am your host, Katalina. Today we will be discussing how self-reflection fuels success. And I have somebody very special with me today. This is the incredible Holly Naiman, and I look up to her so much. She's an incredible, incredible human being. Holly, thank you so much for being on with me
Thank
today.
you
I
for
am
having me. That
so
was
stoked to
very
have you.
sweet.
Yes, truly. I look up to you a ton. I think you're just an incredible
Thank
person.
you.
You're so sweet. You're so personable. And you have a really interesting past about what you've done. And now for people who don't know Holly, she is not exactly in the industry, but she also is in the industry. So she's married to Mark Naiman, who runs both CRS and DCS, two of the biggest industry events. And Holly is so important to those events running smoothly and running it all. You may
Yes,
be behind the scenes, but you
it's a
are
labor of love.
so, yes, it is for sure.
Yeah.
So you have a lot in your past of what you've done in your career, and you do a very different thing today. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about that transition, and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Um, so I started working when I was 14 at a restaurant for some good family friends of ours. And they said, "Hey, we're opening a restaurant. Do you want to come work for us?" And I was like, "Yes." And I showed up to work, my first day of work, and they said, "Here's a bucket of paint, some paintbrushes, paint all these walls. We open in 2 weeks." And I was like, "This, thanks."
Oh,
But I stayed with them all the way through. I worked there for 27 years. And in that time, I went from a little hostess to, a waiter to a bartender to a bar back. I basically did every position there and then eventually was managing it. And I did go to college and then decided I was actually went to college for nursing, but I didn't take that path. I went back into the restaurant industry. They, of course, were so gracious to let me come right back in.
what made you decide to switch out of nursing? I didn't know you went to college
Oh,
for nursing.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
So I went all the way through college, finished everything, and then could not pass my state boards. That is when I was like, okay,
Man.
maybe this is not for me. Yeah, I took them 4 times and failed them all.
Oh no! Okay, maybe that
It's
really is one
okay.
of those
Yeah.
moments. You're like, all right, maybe not for me. Fair.
Yeah. So yeah, there it goes to show, like, you can fail at something and still be successful. I mean,
100%.
for real, it didn't let it bring me down. But anyway, I went back to the restaurant and loved it. And managing people was something that I found a great passion for, which is, to me, it's so special. It's not just managing people, it's managing relationships. And I think that I learned so much in the restaurant industry that it just carries over to whatever industry you're in. So fast forward to
100%.
Mark and I get married, and he's been in the accounts receivables industry forever. And we got married, and then we had kids, and I decided to be a stay-at-home mom at that point. And then just started going to conferences with Mark and supporting him as much as I could. So I have been part of accounts receivables for the better half of a decade and a half or so, attending
Yeah.
conferences and building relationships with people and really learning the industry. And I find it interesting because nobody goes into this industry like, I want to be in accounts receivables industry when I grow up. Everyone has found themselves here in unique ways, which is really great conversations to have. But having said that, that is how I ended up here. But going back
Hmm.
to working at the restaurant and being with people and learning
Yeah.
how to manage, I learned so many wonderful things. Thankfully from the owners of that restaurant who sent me to a few courses about management and personal reflection and things like that. And it was great when Mark, had many, many employees. He would talk to me about some of them, which was rare because I always called him a FBI agent because he would come home and tell me nothing about work or about anybody. But sometimes he would talk about, I'm having this breakdown with an employee and I don't know what to do. And I would say, oh, well, have you had this conversation with him or that conversation? And he's like, no, that it doesn't work like that. And I'm like, it does though, because it's not about restaurant or office. It's literally about human behavior. So,
Yeah, what
um,
you're talking about is tapping into the emotional intelligence of people. So it's
yes,
not one industry alone. And when you and I talked originally about you being in a restaurant, you said something that I 5,000% agree with, which is everybody should at least once in their life work in a restaurant
yes,
because the amount of people skills and like everything you can take away from that
yes.
is incredible.
I couldn't
So
agree more.
yeah.
People skills, time management, multitasking, all those things, all while creating sales and creating an experience for someone, right? Because in a
And the
restaurant,
respect
you
for
create an experience for someone. And you do in other jobs, of course, too. But even collectors, they create an experience when they call the consumer. It's
yes.
really important. And I think a lot of the times we lose, because we're human, we lose, sight of that on how to create
Mhm.
an enjoyable experience no matter what you're doing. And restaurant
Yeah.
industry definitely teaches you that.
Yeah, and a sense of respect for people who work in the service
Yes,
industry. I feel like it tends to be blatantly honest or obvious, excuse me, people who have never worked in any form of the service industry.
just based on the way
They're,
they
they're
behave when you're out to dinner with them, you're like, oh,
exactly, yeah. So just getting your feet a little wet in that at some point in your life, it's totally worth it. What you take
yes,
away from it is huge.
yeah, yeah.
So from there, you moved into that management, and how did you come up with this idea to really harness that emotional intelligence and look into that as a way to manage better?
So I had a unique situation where I had left work and then wasn't planning on going back to work. I was just going to be a stay-at-home mom, and the owners kept calling me saying, "When you coming back? When you coming back?" And I said, "I can't come back. I can't work these nights. I have kids now. I would love to, but I just can't. I can't make it work. It doesn't make sense with the hours and the timing and Mark working and me working. So I'm good." And they said, no, 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 you create your own position and come back. And I said, wow, that is so awesome. So I put my
Cool.
little thinking cap on and I thought, how can I create a position there that does not exist that also increases sales by at least 20%? Like that was my goal, 20% increase sales. How can I do that? And so I really started thinking, I can tap into these employees' emotional state per se, or just have them check in. Like I'm not tapping into it, but I'm having a conversation with them where they can tap into it and find their full potential because we are our worst critic, right? And so I
100%.
came up with these reviews and I said, hey, and honestly, it wasn't mandatory. I just said, hey, if anyone would like a review on how they're doing, let's set up a meeting. And people signed up. And then once people signed up and realized what it was, eventually all the staff was in my office and I was
That's
meeting. And it was
awesome.
great. And I got to choose my own hours and what have you. But how I structured those reviews was I would ask them, what's your function? What do you do here? And, a hostess might say, oh, I greet people. I seat people. I answer the phone. Whatever those things are. And there was never a wrong answer. I would just listen and say, oh my gosh, that's incredible. You're right. That is what you do. And then I say, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being terrible and 10 being extraordinary, where do you rate yourself in greeting people at the door? Like, do you make eye contact with all of them? Are you greeting each of them? Are you explaining, and then you can go on to like, when you go to seat them, are you explaining, telling them who their server's going to be and what the dinner specials are? All those little
Mhm.
things that sometimes can get lost when you're, in a very busy environment. Some of those steps can get missed. And so I would just ask them, like, how are you on each function that they said from 0 to 10? And some would say, I'm a 6. And I'd be like, okay, great. Give me 3 things you can implement and work on to get yourself to a 10. And they would tell me, and I would write them down. And then if they were a 10, I'd say, okay, then let's push for 15. What are 3 things you can implement? And then we would go on to the next question. It was so interesting to see their reaction to their own self-reflection. Not everybody
Mm-hmm.
self-reflects. And so that was my way to kind of get them to look at self and how they function at work and how they're doing. For servers specifically, I would explain to them that you do realize your section is your own restaurant. You own this. You're not the owner, like you are the owner of this section. You're not the owner of the whole restaurant, but you are of this section when you come in here, and treat it as such, right? And then I would
Mm-hmm.
talk to them and kind of give them that type of feel that, oh, wait, you're right. I do own this section. And it seems so simple, but it works. And so when I would talk to them about, what their function was and how, how well are you doing from here to there? And then my final question to all of them would be, do you want to go on vacation? And they'd say, yes, of course. I mean, no one says no. No one, at least I never had
No,
anyone say
vacations
no.
overrated.
But I'd say, do you want to go on
Eh,
vacation? And they'd say yes. And I'd go, great. What does that dream vacation look like to you? And then I would write down everything that they said about their dream vacation. And then we would research how much it would cost. And we would say, okay, well, this is how much you need in order to go on that dream vacation. And so what are your sales right now? These are your sales. If you sold X amount more per shift, this is that money could be put aside. And within 6 months, 8 months, some people it was 2 months, depending on what it was that they were planning, you can go on that vacation and I'm here to support you. Like, and they're like, what?
that's incredible.
Yeah. And it worked because I think a lot of the times in the service industry or cash flow industry per se, when you're working with tips, right? So
Hmm.
it's a lot of easy come, easy go. And I was noticing that, our staff was constantly trying to pick up shifts towards the end of the month because they needed to make rent. And they just weren't, they'd work and make a good 500, $600 in a shift and then go right out and spend it at the bar and hang out with their friends or do whatever or splurge on clothes. And, to each their own, you can do that, but you're never going to get to your vacation, let alone a house, to buy a house, a car, those types of
Yeah.
things. So, and that kind of ties into, financial literacy, which is
Hmm.
very uncommon in
It's not
young
taught.
adults.
Really not taught in
It
schools.
isn't,
Yeah, 100%.
unfortunately. And I'm sure all of us, not all of us, but most of us ended up in some sort of credit card debt when we were in college because no one taught us about interest rates or anything like that. But yeah, so I truly enjoyed doing it. It was great to see those employees thrive and work for their
Well, and what I
goals.
love about what you did there, it's more than just self-reflection. You did a self-reflection with them, but you also kind of showed them their own stake in it.
Yes.
So you gave them this pride in their own work. So it's
Hmm.
self-reflection with a sense of pride. And then you went, all right, well, let's take that self-reflection and let's point it at something.
Yes.
Let's reflect on what you want in life and use it to actually point a compass in a direction and head that way. So that's
Yes.
so cool.
And it was so, thank you. And it was so fun because, when I wasn't having meetings, I would go in a couple nights a week and I would pull out my files and I'd be like, okay, Catalina is working on da 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 da. Perfect. I'd walk out on the floor and say, I'm here to support you on X, Y, and Z that we discussed. Like, but you came up with that. I didn't. Right. So I wouldn't say that to them, but they
Yeah.
were very, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm like, how can I support you tonight? Whether it's helping them run food or helping their table turn times, like clocking their table turn times for them or whatever it was, I was there to support them. And it was easy for me. They did all the work. I just guided their own process because they were all incredible, incredible employees and incredible people and the most eclectic group of people. And they all came from different backgrounds, but they all had that one common goal that they were in charge. And it really was cool to see and watch them blossom. So
That is.
yeah,
You're enhancing their focus, their communication, their drive. It's
yeah.
incredible what you can do. And I think you told me before that those were like 10-minute meetings.
Yeah. Oh, it was
That's
very
all it
fast. Very fast.
took.
Because
Within 10 minutes.
with it, well, right. And because we didn't have to elaborate on anything. Those that I sat down and planned vacations with took a little longer, but just the like review of bullet points of what do you do and what are 3 things you can implement for each function to get better at that. That was a very quick 10-minute conversation because I would never be like, I disagree. You think you're an 8? No, you're actually a 3. I would never, ever, ever say that. sometimes I would say, wow, you say you're a six. I see you as a nine. I see you do this. I see you do that. It was always positive
Mm.
reinforcement and true. But I never was negative. I never, even if some were rating
Yeah.
themselves higher, I never said, mm-mm. I was like, okay, great. We can still implement three things. Um, and of course, the outcome of all of that was better morale with all the staff together collectively, morale with the guests. Sales, guess what sales did? They certainly increased. They all went up because everyone was happy and everyone was making money. And there was no like, I don't want to be here. They were walking into an environment that they were going to make money and they were in charge and they had all the support
And
they
so,
needed.
as a leader, too, by helping each of them reach their individual goals, your original goal was sales up by 20%. I'm
Correct.
assuming you also probably reached
Oh, yes, we
that.
did and beyond, which was great.
Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was awesome.
So as a leader, by helping them reach their goals, you can reach your goals too. And
Correct.
then what do you do as a leader too to self-reflect? Because I know it's great to help your team self-reflect,
Hmm.
but that's got to be important too for leadership to do.
Of course. And I would suggest the exact same thing. What are my functions as a leader and where am I honestly at with myself? Because we all know like, oh gosh, I could have returned that email faster. I could have done, whatever that little task is that you're procrastinating on or
Mhm.
things like that, your efficiency. We're all human and everything ebbs and flows. So the exact same thing I did with the staff. You just have to do with self and even have a conversation. I mean, I know that I talk to Mark all the time, like how's my performance in this? Like what's going on? And, of course with kids, I'm constantly reflecting and thinking, where am I going
Yeah.
wrong? My little kids were so amazing and now they're teenagers and I'm going crazy. But but self-reflection for sure. As a leader, my current role is, as Mark calls it, queen of the castle, which is of our home, and I run all the
Love it.
yeah. So I'm killing it. I'm doing good at that.
Good. Well, and I love the idea of self-reflecting within your specific role too, like what are my functions here and things. I think there's also something to be said about looking at yourself as a whole, even, and being like, hey, what am I good at? What am I not good at? Because if you step outside of your role and sometimes take stock in like, where do you shine? Like, for example, in my own company, I looked at what am I good at from my past? Well, I used to do like acting and things like that. Well,
Right.
that's what led to Career Path. It's like taking stock of where you're better at things. If you
Sure.
stuck me in data management, I'm not very good at
Yeah,
that. That would be a quick fail for me.
for sure.
Um, but yeah, just taking stock of yourself in all the different realms of yourself and then applying that into your job, looking at, okay, then what are the functions of my role and where can I take what I'm good at and plug it into this so that I can boost that focus, that collaboration with my team, that fuel a passion for what I'm doing.
Yes,
So,
yes. 100% true. And I also think too, we have, everyone has little breakdowns that happen in their career or even day to day functions. And that self reflection helps you go, okay, how quickly can I turn this into a breakthrough? Like, what am I learning from this? Where am I going from this? It's all about switching those breakdowns into breakthroughs and just pushing forward. You made up you mentioned a very important point, which is reflecting on, like you said, I found what I'm good at. If you would have put me in data management, no, thank you. Like, no,
yeah.
that's huge. And I think a lot of times people take a job just because they take the job and they see the title and they see the money and they're actually not good at it. And then of course, that doesn't mean they can't learn, but
Yeah.
and of course they can, and I'm sure they do, but they're not happy. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I've seen it before where they've learned the skill, they do the job, but then yet they're not quite happy in that position
Yeah.
because it's not where they really thrive, but they did it.
Hmm.
That actually made me think about titles. That was a big one that we would discuss in our meetings because I would ask, where do you want to be? Oh, I want to be, because, not everyone chooses the restaurant industry as a career. Um,
Yeah.
Unless you end up buying your own restaurant and it becomes your career, of course. But it's kind of a gateway position or an experience position, something to put on your resume. It's easy cash. It's, good hours if you're a student and you can go to school and then go to work at night. And there's all those benefits of that. But
Mhm.
it's, I would always find it interesting if someone's like, I want to be a CEO of a company, or I want to be this, or I want to be that. I think a lot of the times people get caught up on the actual title, instead
Mm.
of what it actually means to be in that. Because some people
Yeah.
in a lot of industries and a lot of places get moved up to a certain title, and they think with that title comes more money and more power and more this and more that. When in reality, look, there is no such thing as a bad employee. It's bad management. And if you don't work your way as a manager or CEO or whatever that title is, if you're not doing your
Mhm.
job, your team's not going to perform. And it's not their
Yeah.
fault. Some weed themselves out, of course. But as a manager, I think it's super important to realize that if you're having a breakdown with your team, it is your responsibility to figure out where that breakdown is happening, with who, do some reflection and support that person. And if it's not a position they want to be in anymore, they will weed themselves out. You do not have to fire
Mhm.
them, trust me. I mean, not in every position, but in the restaurant, that's how it
Fair.
worked.
Yeah. Fair. Well, I want to do something kind of fun with you that we've never done
Oh
on
boy.
Career Path before.
Okay.
I have a little self-reflection assessment that we can do together. And I'd love to do it live with you. So I've already done it before, but I will be sharing my answers as we go. So you'll hear mine as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
But that way, we get to go through it with you one by one. And anybody who's listening, if you're not driving or something, listening to this as a podcast, go ahead and jot down your answers as well, because this is very fun. I originally stumbled upon this as it's supposed to be one of the best things you can do on a first date, because it cleverly reveals what people are. It's hard to explain. It reveals a couple of different aspects of who people are without you exactly knowing what it is as you're taking the test. This will
Got it.
become
So it's kind of
clearer
like the love
in a
language
minute.
test,
Yeah.
sort of.
So in
Well, we'll
in a little
see.
bit of a way, you're going to give answers and you're not going to really understand what it means until the end and I go over it,
Okay. Okay.
basically.
Let's do it.
So there's technically four questions. We are going to skip the third because it's not work friendly. Like I said, originally, this is more of a dating thing. But everybody I've done it with, it is incredibly insightful and accurate. I have never done it with somebody and had them be like, no, that doesn't match with me at all. Like,
Sure.
they're like, oh my God, you know what? Yeah. So it's kind of fun. So the first one is, I want you to select an animal,
Okay.
any animal. It's up to you. Any animal, select one that you really like. And then I need three aspects from you about why you really like the animal. For example, mine is, I picked owls. They're one of my favorite animals. So I said I really like owls because they represent wisdom. They're very loyal, and they have this sense of being majestic. So those are my three things: the wisdom, loyal, and majestic. So pick an animal, and I'd love to hear your three things, and I'm going to
Ooh.
write it down for you.
Okay. Well, my favorite animal is a dolphin.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Um,
Great animal.
Mark's in the kitchen laughing at me. He's laughing
Oh,
because we have some very funny dolphin stories, which I can share
oh my
later.
God. Oh, well, we need to do this with Mark too.
I will,
I'm
for
curious
sure.
of your answers. Okay. So dolphin, and three reasons
Three
why.
reasons. One, they live in the ocean, and the ocean is one of my happiest places.
So it needs to be a
Oh, a
characteristic of them, like
characteristic. Okay.
loyal,
They
or
are very loyal. Yes.
is that a reason? But is that a reason why you like them? That was my answer for owl.
Yeah. Yes, actually, it is a reason. It is a
Okay, so
reason.
they're loyal.
Hmm. They are, oh,
Two other
Catalina,
characteristics.
this is hard. They are, I mean, you said majestic, but they really are majestic. Like just the way they move through the water, and they're so calming,
It's okay if you have the same as me.
loving
In
and
fact,
calming,
love that. Ooh,
calming
love. So
and
do you want to
loving.
do loyal, majestic, and loving?
Yes.
Loyal, majestic, loving. Okay. Great answers. All right. So now we switch gears. Now you need to pick an article of clothing and three characteristics as to why you like that article of clothing. For me, I picked a jacket. I love a good jacket because they're warm. They can also be very versatile and stylish. So that's why I like them: warm, versatile, stylish.
Okay.
What is yours? It could be a
Shoes.
hat. It could be glasses.
Shoes.
There you go.
Shoes.
Okay. Why shoes?
They always fit.
Always fit.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And they are super cute. Or stylish,
Cute.
I guess that would be.
Okay. Stylish.
And functional.
Okay. Always fit. I'm trying to get
Is that
always
not?
fit down to like a characteristic word. There is a word
Oh,
similar to versatile, I think.
I think versatile is good.
Multi-purpose.
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 Yeah.
There you go. Multi-purpose, stylish, and functional. Let me get that jotted down. Multi-purpose. Okay. Last one, because we're skipping number 3. This one's very unique, but bear with me. Imagine you just wake up and you are in a room. It is white walls, white ceiling, white floor. Everything is white. You can't see anything. There are no windows, no doors, nobody there. Just you, nothing in the room, white room, no windows, no doors. Give me 3 immediate feelings. How would you feel in that? For me, or I'll tell you mine in a minute. I want to hear your
anxious,
feelings. Okay.
trapped, and alone.
Okay, interesting. All right.
I am
so
the
are
only
you
one in
ready
the room,
to
right?
hear your results?
I'm the only one
You
in the
are the
white
only one
room?
in the room.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so it's very interesting. And now we're going to go over the results and explain
What were your
everything.
3 for the white room?
Oh, confused, curious, and determined.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I love a good escape room. So I'm like,
Oh,
all
not
right,
me.
what's next?
Nope.
How do I get out of here?
Nope.
Like,
I don't like being in
determined.
elevators. I don't like being in small spaces.
Yeah,
I don't like
and that's
being,
fair.
I'm like, that room sounds like
Fair.
hell.
Okay. So the first one, the animal, that is how you would like to be in the world. Because when you pick a favorite animal and you have 3 characteristics you like about them, you're picking things that you want to embody and you want to see in yourself. So for you, you love loyalty. You love like majestic, like that beauty in the world, and you love loving.
Yes.
So dolphin, loyal, majestic,
That is
loving.
so true.
Those are things that you want to embody. Yeah, right?
It's so true. We were just having
Mine
a
is-
conversation about this last night. My neighbor was over and he says, because the kids have gotten older, but every year I would do this big Christmas party for all the kids on my street, and I would have a Santa come and they would all get matching pajamas, and it was just that loving community that I love to create and be around people and just spread love and joy and happiness. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's so great. Yeah.
100%. And I feel that from you. I think you do embody that. You really do. And for mine to reflect again, it was the owl with wisdom. And I've always respected wisdom so much. Like I grew up with Harry Potter, like Ravenclaw, like loving learning and books and all of that. And loyal was another one of mine. So just like yours, I love that being connected with people, and then majestic.
And people know me. If you, those that like know me know if you are not loyal to me, you are no longer in my life, and that's okay. But I haven't I'm very Taurus like that, and I have no issue just cutting someone out indefinitely. I will always be cordial if I see them, but they are no longer a part of my life. So
yeah, fair.
Kind of harsh, but
well, there you go, and that perfectly matched you with the dolphin. Now, the next one, the article of clothing, it is supposed to represent. This was also, I believe, developed by a psychologist, if I'm not mistaken. So quick side note on that.
Okay.
But an article of clothing is how you want to be perceived by others in the world. So it's not always exactly what you want to embody. Like I don't always want to be seen as wisdom or the smartest person, but what I do want to be seen as is somebody who's warm, which I was like, oh my God, that really is. Yeah. I want to be seen as somebody who's warm, somebody who's versatile, but I feel like versatile, in a human form is more like easygoing and able to talk to anyone, and stylish. And yeah, I love to be seen as stylish.
Yeah,
I
of
love
course.
fashion. So I was like, oh my God, that fits me perfectly. And for you, your shoes. You also picked like versatile and multi-purpose. And yeah, my God, the different hats that you wear in
Thank
your
you. That's
life.
so true. God, this is so
So
crazy.
true. And then you're also incredibly stylish. You have a very set like style and
Thank you.
fashion, and like, and the last one is functional. And from the day that I met you, you get things done. You seem like somebody who's like, yeah, how do we get from point A to point B?
Yes.
How do we get to your goal?
Hmm.
How do we get you on
Oh my
vacation?
gosh,
Like
that's
you
so
are.
weird. This is so great.
Isn't it fun? I
Yeah.
hope people who are going over their results at home right now are also having a great
Yeah,
time.
for sure.
So the last one is totally different. And there is a way it can relate back to work as well, but it is supposed to be an analogy for death, the white
Interesting.
room,
Okay.
because it's something so unknown and kind of scary. And like thinking about being like that kind of a scenario, how would you feel? And yeah, thinking about death, there's a sense of confusion for me, but there's also a sense of curiosity.
Hmm.
Like it does pique my interest. And there is also a huge sense of determination for me, because I'm always like, I want to get things done before I die then. Like
Yeah.
I got stuff to do. So
Right,
like that
right.
is perfect for me. But it also can parallel how you in the workplace, how you approach very difficult situations. Do you approach them with curiosity and
Mm.
determination, and also confusion? Yes. I
Mm.
feel like that's me. I like, it hits me and I'm like, oh my God, I am so confused, but I'm also kind of curious about it, and
Right.
I'm a little determined too. So for you, you said you feel instantly, you've got this like anxious feeling,
Hmm.
you feel a little trapped, and you feel alone.
Yep.
Does that resonate with you as well?
Yes.
Is that kind of, well, let's see. First, is that how you feel about death?
Wow. I guess so. I'm not afraid of dying though, so I'm not,
Mhm.
maybe the anxious part is from just not knowing how it's gonna happen, perhaps. I don't know, because
Yeah.
I don't know. And then what was the other one I said was
You said, now this may be a
alone?
little skewed though, because you do have a little bit of like that claustrophobia.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
maybe the room was a little hard. Maybe I should have said it was very wide open.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
It's
I
interesting. I'm
don't
trying to
think
relate of so like why that would be. I definitely there it is skewed because I mean I do have claustrophobia issues, but like
that's
feeling
fair.
trapped.
Maybe a little skewed because of that.
But I think alone too. I don't ever want to die alone. Like I just would want someone
Yeah.
by my side, and it just.
Yeah.
I mean, when my father was passing, and my mom, I remember I was in charge of the medical stuff and decisions because she was clearly not of her right mind because she was just so sad. But
Mm.
anyway, it was beautiful that he passed with my mom holding him and my sister and I by his side too. So I would hate to die alone. I feel, I mean, even when COVID was happening and people were dying in the hospital, it was just awful. Like that is a fear of
Yeah.
mine, and I just don't want that to ever happen.
100%.
But yeah,
It would
so
be awful.
interesting. That is very interesting.
So, does it resonate with you at all with how you would react to like fighting a big issue or at work?
No, it doesn't.
And I think that
It
might
doesn't
be
at
because it's
all.
a little skewed because of the claustrophobia.
Yeah, yeah.
You are the first
Yeah,
person I've
because
done
I'm
this with
definitely
who
not
has
alone. I
claustrophobia.
have plenty of support, you know. I
Mhm.
do definitely feel alone sometimes in parenting, not, and that's no dig on Mark. It's just alone, but with him, if that makes sense. Like parenting is, there's a million books about it, and we're just constantly looking at each other like, yeah, there's a million books, but none of them pertain to our kids. And are we doing this right? You know, like reaching out to
Yeah,
other parents, like, are your teenagers going through this too? Like, I feel a little alone here. Like, I didn't do this stuff or
that's
whatever,
fair.
but yeah, yeah,
For
I
you,
don't,
I honestly feel like your answers for the room are almost the opposite of how you um, combat challenges.
I couldn't
So
agree more
instead
because
of
that's
being
not how
anxious,
I combat them at all.
Yeah, instead of being anxious, you tend to be more determined.
Yes,
Instead of feeling trapped, you're always looking at all the different options. And instead of feeling alone, you look at the people around you to leverage.
absolutely.
So,
Yes.
in a way, I think it still gave you your answer, but it's like the flip
Flip
of
side.
it.
Yeah, because we just got to take that little claustrophobic out of there.
Yeah,
Needed to be a
it might
different
be a little
space.
scary. If anybody at home also has claustrophobia and had your last answers a little skewed, I'm curious. Please put it in the comments below. I'd be interested to see. But I'm also going to send these to you, Holly, so that you get
Yeah,
to
that'd
save
be
your
great.
results. Because I think it's a very, very interesting little test. And when you look at it and you get to reflect on yourself, you're like, wow, I do want to embody those things, or I do like people to perceive me that way. And you get to see how you're interacting in the world a little bit, and then
Sure.
look at work. How do I do that at work? Well, I am warm. I try to be very warm at work, and at events I try to be versatile and like talk to everybody, and like there is a
Yeah.
lot to say about like looking at yourself and
That's
then
so
applying it.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you. That was
Awesome.
fun.
Of course. And thank you so much for doing that with me. That was really fun to try
Yeah.
something a little different on the episode. But we are out of time. Thank you so much for coming
Thank you
on,
for
sharing your
everything.
experience.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me.
It is such a pleasure.
Yeah.
And to all of our listeners, if you have any questions, comments, you want to share your results, please put them down below. I am super curious to read about it. Otherwise, I will see you in the next episode.
Yes. And I'll see you at DCS and CRS.
Yes. See you there.
CRS is coming
See you
up
there.
around the corner. All right. Thanks, honey. I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.